you are.
Hey, oh, I'm in an Uber on the way to pick up my car. I had to end up bringing it to the shop today after a doctor's appointment.
Oh, okay. Is it, minor stuff or everything okay?
Yeah, it's minor.
Okay, that's good.
Everything's okay.
Nice. Okay. And I see we have a new guest today. Hi, Michelle.
Hi there. Okay, for the dogs again. Hi there. I'm Michelle from Costa, and I'm happy to be here. I'm glad that I was able to make it. I always try to be as involved as I can.
Oh, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. I'm actually, so I am very interested in this, I don't really want to say topic because, it's a very sensitive area for males and females. However, I am a sexual assault nurse examiner as well. And we had a program here in Brevard County, and it was closed down and taken over by the local hospitals. And now just recently they reached back out to us and said the hospitals need to have us back. So now we're all beginning to interview again and get credentialed and all that to go back and do the exams at the hospitals, which I prefer. But anyway, I'm excited to be here and good to be involved with ISTO and trying to assist my son with his nonprofit Costa Surf Therapy, and it's been a journey to say the least.
Oh, well, thank you for everything that you're doing. In your personal life and helping your son with his nonprofit. Thank you so much, and for your interest here as well. Since we have you and Karen are our newbies for this week, I wanted to ask you one question so we can get to know a little bit about you personally. Is that okay? So, okay, 3 things. What makes you mad, glad, and sad?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, goodness. Oh my gosh. One thing that makes me mad. Oh gosh, this is a tough one because I really don't want to disclose certain things.
Okay.
But one thing that makes me mad or annoyed or angry is when it's obvious that something needs to be done in the house and like my family will just walk by it and not do anything. What makes me glad is progression in my career and people believing in what I have to say and what I my thoughts are about different projects and things like that, and it makes me glad to know that they're tracking and they understand where I'm coming from. Was the other one sad?
Yes.
Oh, lots of things make me sad. People that are alone make me sad more than anything.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's certainly understandable. And, I'm sorry, did you say what population Costa Surf serves?
So we are supporting veterans and first responders.
Okay, thank you for everything that you do. And then, so Miss Karen, we're just going to do some quick intros and then we're going to go into the presentation today. Thank you for sharing that, Michelle. So Miss Karen, I know that you're about to share much more about what you all do and kind of, the purpose of Veterans Surf Project, but could you just share a little bit about yourself as far as what makes you sad, glad, and mad, and just any kind of introduction details you'd like to share with yourself?
Sure. I'm Karen Evans, and I live on the central coast of California. Let's see. I tried to answer them like really quick and intuitively. So what makes me mad is seeing animals or people intentionally hurt. What makes me glad is seeing people laugh. And what makes me sad is seeing other people sad. So that was pretty simple.
Yeah, I certainly see that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it looks like we have one more person coming in. I don't know, can you hear us, Pascal? Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah. Hi.
Hello. Thanks for coming in. I see you're coming to us from Canada, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. The French part, that's from where the accent is coming from.
It's beautiful. So if you could just do a little introduction of yourself, since you're new to the group, we'd love to get to know a little bit about you. Basically, which organization you're with, the population you serve, and then I have one more question after that, please.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's great to be with you guys. I'm sorry I missed the first one. But yes, my name is Pascal. You pronounce it properly. And I'm from Quebec City, Canada, and I've started an adaptive SUP club in my hometown in 2018 with a friend who's paraplegic. So we started with paraplegic people, but then we also opened to amputees or people who did a stroke, and basically everyone who wants to get on the water.
That's amazing. Thank you for doing that. If you'd like to share, what was your motivation to start the organization?
Well, I'm working as a kinesiologist in a physical rehabilitation center. So I'm already using sport to help people as much as I can. But then, like water sport, they're really my favorite. So sharing my passion for water sport is really kind of, I would say, next level for me. So starting that with some friends that also share the same passion for water sport. So yeah, and it's been really good lately, except for last year when we couldn't go out of the water, like probably some of you guys. But we're looking forward to start again. We're starting next week. So lots of things to organize still.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then one last question. What makes you mad, glad, and sad?
Mad, glad, and sad.
Yes.
Ah, well, that's a good question. I would say glad. Uh, well, when either in my job or in like the sub club, and I'm also following I forgot to tell about it, but I'm also in charge of the Canadian Adaptive Surf Team. So I'm following them in competition. So glad is when I can, witness someone catching a wave or on a paddleboard, enjoying the water. So someone who otherwise wouldn't have the chance to do it. So it makes me really glad, really happy. Sad, I think, well, when we want to do things, but like it's, for example, really hard to, there's some people I would like to get on the water, but I still don't have the proper equipment and stuff. So it sort of makes me sad not to be able to tell them, yes, you can come with us on the water, but hopefully it will arrive soon. And glad, sad, and what was the other one?
And mad.
Ah, mad. Well, I would say for the moment, people not calling back, when you're asking for sponsorships. And we're like that at the moment. So we're trying to reach out to lots of people. And sometimes we get reply. And even if it's a no, it's all right. But sometimes we don't even get like callbacks. So that makes me mad.
Oh, certainly, especially when it's such a noble cause. Why wouldn't someone at least respond? That's completely understandable.
Shandon, can I just say, Pascal, I was going to interrupt if you did not bring up the fact that you are leading the adaptive surfing competitive side. If you guys haven't been to an International Surfing Association event, that's where I got to meet Pascal. You are such a rock star. Like that's the least of all of the cool things that you're doing, but leading that entire team is so fun to see you in action. So thank you for all that.
Thanks a lot. It's been a bit complicated because last competition we had was in March 2020.
Yeah.
So they called like the pandemic while we were in California. So we had to reorganize the whole thing and do the quarantine coming back. But yeah, we were able to do it. So that's the important thing.
Oh,
Yeah, congrats on that.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And on that high note, I would like to turn to a very serious topic that we are going to discuss today. And since it is a very sensitive topic, oh, my name is Shandon, by the way, and I've been blessed to be asked to be the group leader for our little group. So thank you very much, Chris, and everyone who is part of this group. I'm very excited for today and everything that is to come. Switching back to the other gear, we are discussing military sexual trauma today, and we have a couple of female veterans who have graciously agreed to share their knowledge and what they're doing for the veteran surf community with us. You know, that said, the information and the topic is very sensitive, so if you need to turn off your video or if you need to walk away, please feel free to do so. This meeting is being recorded and it will be shared on the, I can never say this word, thank you, ISTO. Sorry,
yes,
this against me. I finally did it. I had to like read it in the box. It will be shared on a public link. So the content will be shared. Please let us know if you would rather not have your face or any part of the recording. Just please let us know how you feel about that. But in that note, I would like to introduce the beautiful, the wonderful, the knowledgeable, the courageous. We have Karen and Luce. So Karen is a Coast Guard veteran and Luce is a Marine veteran, and they are the co-founders of the Veteran Surf Project. So if you have any questions during their presentation, please type them in the chat box, and at the very end, we'll make sure to address everything. That way the content flows pretty seamlessly. And ladies, I'd like to hand it over to you. Thank you very much.
Karen, you want to go ahead and explain?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Evans, and the Women Veterans Surf Project was being in its, I'll say, conception phases in separate wombs, so to speak. I goof around a lot, so just bear with me. So Luz is down in Southern California. I'm on the Central Coast, and we both were having the same inspiration to do something for women veterans, since surf therapy had helped us so much in our healing journeys. And so it was perfect. We ended up meeting at a surf retreat through Operation Surf in Pismo Beach, and we were roommates. And I mean, it was just like instant connection. We both grew up outside of Manhattan, so there were all these things that were crossing over. And so we were like, okay, this is meant to be. And so after the retreat, we started trying to define what is it that women veterans really need and how can we provide that or start that conversation. And so the Women Veterans Surf Project started with Luz and I, but it really included two other females, Ash and Val, and then some other kind of on the fringe female veterans that were putting their input in. So this is very much a collective of women. And so I guess we've had to define and redefine based on certain things we've come up against. And, and people go, well, what is this? And what is that? And so basically at this point, we're not a nonprofit. We're not a formal organization. We're a project or like a coalition of sorts. And we've agreed that the function of the Women Veterans Surf Project is to act as a community where we can provide resources and act as liaisons for women veterans seeking healing through the ocean. And that would include surf therapy, even just getting them to the ocean. And so we don't really affiliate with one specific organization. So we're both, I'm a facilitator through Groundswell Community Project, and I absolutely love Groundswell, and the education through Natalie Small has been amazing. And Luz is also doing the same training as well. And it's trauma recovery and trauma informed. And so it's for women. And so it just lends perfectly to what Luz and I are trying to do. But we are not affiliated with one organization. We want to serve women veterans wherever they are and however we can internationally. So, no matter what side of whatever war that you may have fought on, like, it doesn't matter anymore because the ocean doesn't have any barriers. And so that's like our big, goal is to get women surfing all over the world. So yeah, I guess that's kind of, and Luz, just come on in.
Very well said. Thank you. Yeah, and we don't take ourselves very seriously either. So although this is a difficult topic, Karen and I make jokes all the time and smile a whole lot. So don't let that fool you. You kind of have to have a good sense of humor when you're dealing with stuff like this. So I'll give you a brief of who I am. I joined the Marine Corps at age 17, grew up in Long Island, New York, and I was the first person in my family to decide to join active duty service and head off to Okinawa. So I arrived in Okinawa at 18 by that point, because I went through boot camp. Arrived in Okinawa, and within a few weeks, I was facing sexual harassment. And several months after that, while I was out one night with my female Marine friends, I was drugged and raped in a nightclub and left on the side of the road. And when I asked for help and I reported it, even during an open investigation with the Naval Criminal Investigative Services for that man to be prosecuted for the crime of rape, they instead allowed him to separate with an other than honorable discharge and leave the island, and ultimately retaliated against me afterward and separated me from the Marine Corps. So I went 16 years with 0 veteran benefits and no mental health help or care from the VA. And I found the ocean in 2013. I grew up in Long Island, so I always loved the water, but I found surfing, and it was the greatest way that I was able to heal and start some sense of recovery. And then, like Karen said, once we had met, I'd been working separately, but going to all of these surf events for veterans and being like, where are all the women at? Like, I know they're there, but I can't find them. So after a while, I was lucky enough to meet Karen, and we just kind of put all the stuff we'd been working on individually together. So I'm going to give you a definition of how the VA defines MST, which is military sexual trauma, and this varies by country. So this is how the United States Department of Veterans Affairs defines it. It says that the VA uses the term military sexual trauma to refer to sexual assault or sexual harassment experienced during one's military service. MST includes sexual activity that you are involved in against your will, and it gives examples. Being pressured or coerced into sexual activities, such as with threats of negative treatment if you refuse to cooperate, or with promises of better treatment in exchange for sex. Sexual contact or activities without your consent, including when you are asleep or intoxicated. Being overpowered or physically forced to have sex. Being touched or grabbed in a sexual way that made you feel uncomfortable, including during hazing experiences. And comments about your body or sexual activities that you found threatening, or any unwanted sexual advances that you found threatening. So MST, a really big thing to point out, it is absolutely not a gender issue. This does not only happen to women. It is actually an abuse of power issue, and that is why you see MST affects males as well. Anyone can experience MST regardless of gender. Like other types of trauma, MST can negatively affect a person's mental and physical health. And years later, the things one could experience, and often does, is disturbing memories or nightmares, difficulty feeling safe, feelings of depression or numbness, problems with alcohol or other drugs, feeling isolated from others, problems with anger, irritability, or other strong emotions, issues with sleep, and physical health problems. So that is kind of the overview of what military sexual trauma is. And Karen is going to go ahead and give us the connection between surfing and healing from MST, and how does surfing actually bring up the trauma.
Okay, so going along with what Luz was talking about, the experiences physically and mentally, when she was talking about disturbing memories or nightmares. So basically they're the common symptoms you would see, you know, in PTSD. And so there was a study done by Dr. Stein in 2003. It was through the San Diego VA. And I liked how she put that sexual assault may lead to disturbances in somatic perception and body identity. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about is from personal experience, and also other women veterans that I'm friends with that have done surf therapy. So I found it interesting because when I started surf therapy, the first thing that freaked me out was the wetsuit. And I was in the Coast Guard. I love water. I love swimming. I love being in the ocean. But I was overweight, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to put this skin tight thing over my body. Everyone's going to see me. All these guys are here. I don't even know if I'll put it on correctly. And it was just like, it's humiliating basically. And so I just felt everything could be seen. I couldn't hide. And so that feeling of I couldn't hide is a big thing. Sorry, I have like text coming. And so the somatic perception and the body identity. And so a lot of women, and just from my experience, struggle with low self-esteem, feeling fat, ugly, unlovable, damaged, dirty, ruined, guilt, shame, like all these really negative feelings and identity stuff. And when you're in the military, you have a sense of pride. You have a uniform, you have a mission, you have a crew, and you're really busy oftentimes, you know, doing something to serve other people. And so you're kind of out of your own head. But when you have sexual trauma or assault or rape, you know, in the military, you have to just keep going. You basically suck it up and you keep going, and you don't talk about it. And if you do talk about it, there's some serious consequences that come with that. And so that identity for me was a huge thing. And so surfing, the cool part about that is once you kind of get over the wetsuit thing and get past that, now it becomes your uniform. You're like, oh, I got my uniform now. And your booties become your boondockers, and your board becomes your piece. And so all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I know how to do this. My body has been trained how to do this. And so there's another language that you can learn. And so previously, you know, if you're disassociating and you're isolating yourself, now you're kind of coming out a little bit, and you're coming to the ocean and that mission that you would have had when you were in the military, because these are things like I missed in the military, so it wasn't all bad. The mission now is to go catch a wave, meet my friends, paddle out into like crazy waves just to see if I stay alive. So veterans tend to have probably not very healthy, but honestly, adrenaline seeking behaviors. So you take them out of the military, they lose their identity, struggling with sexual trauma, and now they don't even have a safe way to channel their adrenaline seeking behaviors. And so that often you see in alcohol and drug abuse. And so surfing has a great addictive component. And so I feel like that's a really fun way for veterans to kind of get their kicks again in a healthy way. And it's social. And so they can do that with their friends. So what happens is when you are learning to surf, there's some things that happen to the body that triggers what it feels like to be raped. And so when you take a wave and you fall off for the first time and you're really held under, you can imagine that wave is so heavy and you can't breathe and you can't get back up. And so that's a very similar experience in the body. And so you might have flashbacks. You might not understand why you're actually really freaking out. And so when doing surf therapy with women, and this comes up often, it's like surfing is going to trigger your body to remember these things. and then connecting that with their brain and their body and saying, hey, guess what? You can get up right now and you can get out of the water. It's your choice. You have control in this situation. And just them knowing they have control and they can say, no, I'm good, I'm out, is huge. And so now they're taking a situation that before they couldn't get out of, and they are telling their body, hey, body, we can get up and we can walk out of here. And there's no punishment. We're not going to get punished for that. In fact, surfing empowers the body. You know, you get these dopamine showers that are wonderful. And you start looking at your body as this like powerhouse. And you're like, oh my gosh, look what I'm doing with my body. Maybe it isn't dirty. And you're in the ocean and you actually feel super clean. And it's like a, I don't know, kind of a baptism of sorts, you know, every time you're in the water. And, you know, I feel on that level too, just being in the ocean is very cleansing. Another interesting thing too is veterans marry veterans. So then you have double damaged people in these relationships that can be really, really toxic. And I just want to point that out because it's really hard to love yourself and love someone else. And then you have that dynamic of the military, and just, it's very difficult for people, veterans, to have healthy relationships. And what I have noticed with surf therapy is people's relationships really improve in their families. I'm trying to think of anything else. Another kind of fun thing with surfing is reminiscent for me is getting deployed. Like I do miss getting deployed. And so scheduling a surf trip with a bunch of friends, and what board are you bringing? And you know, oh, well, let's go camp here and let's get, you know, it's something about that is so reminiscent for me of being in the military and the part I liked. Not wearing makeup, just looking like a ragamuffin surfer girl all the time. It's nice. I can just not have to be put together. And so yeah, that's kind of what I got with that. And I just wanted to give credit to Carly Rogers, who developed ocean therapy. Her curriculum is phenomenal. And then Natalie Small's curriculum for Groundswell, they're both just top notch for surf therapy. Just got to give shout outs to them.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely, like the camaraderie is such a cool thing, because especially with women veterans, because there's this language with veterans in general, right? There's a language that it's a lot like surfing. When you're a new surfer and you show up at the ocean and you got a bunch of old surfers talking, you don't understand half of what they say. And you're like, oh my God, I don't even know, like, what are rails and what is concave and what does this all mean? And so it's kind of cool because when you surf with vets, it's like, there's a whole unspoken language there that we all just understand. And yeah, the camaraderie is probably my favorite thing. Getting together with a bunch of women vets too is such a good time. We always laugh. So there's a couple things to remember when you are working with a veteran population who has experienced MST. So first off, remember, MST is not an issue of gender, it's an abuse of power. The most underrepresented and underserved population is males who have experienced MST. As women, we're very fortunate to have, there are organizations and there is support and resources out there. But part of that too is that we report more than males do. And a lot of times where MST is experienced with males is during hazing. So if you're not familiar with hazing, it's similar to what goes on in college fraternities, but in the military, there can be a line that one crosses where it becomes sexual violence. And so a lot of times it's not even, for some men, it's not even recognized that that is actually military sexual trauma until years later when they get into mental health and they realize that that was exactly what it was. So keep in mind, they are the most underrepresented and underserved population. Also remember that the body, like Karen said, the body keeps the score and it remembers the trauma along with the mind. So things that the body remembers, that is why oftentimes when you're working with veterans, some of these things will come up because their body is sending physiological cues prior to them even sometimes understanding what is happening. And this is something that I only say it's my favorite because it's something that I think is so important that we often forget, which is that MST is a global issue. Now, I'm not happy it's a global issue, but it is not exclusive to the United States military. And unfortunately, that gets overlooked very often when we talk about MST domestically. We tend to think that it's only happening here, or it's only happening in the Marine Corps, or only in the Army. Not true. It affects every branch of service, whether it is active duty or reserve, and it affects almost all militaries across the world. I have yet to meet someone who has served in a military form of one or another, who said that they have not heard of something or known someone who has experienced some form of sexual trauma. So the next thing too is that language is extremely important. A lot of people who don't necessarily work directly with this population don't know. And so, some of these things are, you don't know what you don't know until someone corrects you. But definitely try to use the language of, if you're addressing people who have been through it, address them as survivors as opposed to victims. I don't know anybody who prefers victim over survivor, myself included. But that is something that can often just be overlooked because we say you were a victim of rape or you were a victim of sexual assault. You've actually survived it. Ohana. This is an interesting one that Karen remembers when we were at this retreat together. That word gets thrown around a lot in the surf community, right? We say, welcome to the Ohana, you're now part of the family. And essentially we are, right? We're like one big giant global family of surfers, which is amazing. But family in itself can be a major trigger word. And I will explain why. So when I went through this retreat, the person who was in charge kept using that word. And I went up to him at the end and I said, look, you had my attention until you dropped the F-bomb. And he's like, what? I didn't curse. And I said, well, you said family. And as soon as you said family, internally, I shut down a bit. Internally, I started putting some guards up and going, ooh, if this is family, I don't know if I want to be involved or invited here. And he asked why. And I explained that, the last family I'd been a part of was the United States Marine Corps. And within that family unit, I was drugged and raped by a brother in service. And when I told someone what happened, the people who were in charge, who were like parents to me, my chain of command, did not do what they were supposed to do to protect me. So I ended up returning home. And like I said, I didn't get help for 16 years. Finally, my discharge got upgraded. I got my veteran benefits back. I'm now 100% service connected. But that took 4 attorneys and 4 years and a lot of stress, a lot of trauma too, to have to relive it all. But, what I realized was that and this is something that people were having a hard time understanding, why was MST different than civilian sexual assault or somebody who is not served? And I came to understand that it was because my experience, and this might not be true for everyone, but my experience was that I was betrayed by a family. So the symptoms I was starting to show were more similar to somebody who had been through incest. And I looked this up. Me and Karen have looked this up for a while, trying to see, has anybody done any research on this? And we've yet to find it, but it's a connection that we made, and it really came up when that person said to me, welcome to the Ohana. And I was like, go away. So I've learned now to just educate people on that. If you're going to be working with the veteran population, being careful of using the word family because it can be a trigger. And then the other part is also, not everybody is comfortable with being touched. And sometimes we forget that. MST, unlike an amputation, you don't see that in, right? When I walk down the beach, I've had people say to me too, being 100% service connected, well, you don't look disabled. And my thing is, well, what does that look like, right? Because we often confuse that disability. If we can't see it, then we don't believe it exists. So being able to use my voice and educate people about that there's no look of MST, but that doesn't negate it being there. So me personally, I don't like being touched by strange people I do not know, right? I prefer to be asked, like, hey, can I give you a hug? People come to just hug me. I kind of move back a little, and I'm 4'11", so I just don't like being in people's armpits anyway when I hug. But when you're working with the population of veterans, it is always a good idea to ask, right? To say, let them know, can I put my hand on your lower back as I'm trying to take you out to the ocean? And if that person says not, or if they're giving all the nonverbals that it's probably not a good idea to touch them, they're staying within a 2 arms distance range, then it's something you could do is offer additional modalities of training that don't involve touching. So an example would be mirroring, right? You can get on your board and say, this is what I'd like you to do with the board. This is how I'd like you to carry it. This is where I want you to put it on your body. You could just walk out with them and just talk them through it step by step, keeping in mind that we are veterans, which means we are trainable, right? We've been trained to use guns and do all kinds of fun things and blow shit up. So like we are able to go out there and learn something by someone's vocal instruction. The other thing is watching. You could ask them if they're not feeling comfortable, hey, why don't I go out and I'm going to show you how to walk the board out, and then I'm going to come back and then we'll do it together. You could also definitely make sure that you listen to your participants' questions and fears without judgment, right? And what I mean by that is not giving them I think it's very hard sometimes because our first thing is to say, I am so sorry that happened to you. Oh my God, you poor thing. And as soon as we hear that, we're like, no, so that's what I mean by the judgment part is sometimes it's better not to show that we're feeling sorry for someone, but in exchange say, you know what, like looking at the positive. Well, you're here today and that's amazing. I'm so glad you made it out to the beach. Aren't the waves beautiful? Like, look at the sunset, stuff like that. So our next part is most common questions. So the most common question that I've ever received is, how do I approach a survivor who may seem distant from the group, uninterested, withdrawn, or appears to be socially overwhelmed during the surf experience? And we came up with about 5 things to kind of briefly answer that question. The first thing is, like Karen said, and probably the most important, explain how to put on a wetsuit and offer a private setting to do so. A lot of us salty surfers who've been out there for a long time, we towel change right by our car. We don't care. And we forget that that is not everyone's comfort zone. So always instruct, like knee pads in the front, zipper in the back, because it's the worst. You get a new person and they get the wetsuit on and the zipper's in the front. You're like, you poor thing, take it off, turn it around. So that is one. B, always ask permission to touch them. That includes giving a hug or even a high five. Like legit just asking, is it okay? And once they give you that okay, yeah, high fives, elbow bumps, whatever we're doing with COVID, but making sure that you've gained permission prior to doing that. Life lessons can be offered with I statements. It is the best thing to let them know and remind them often what you experienced when you began surfing, right? I had a hard time with the wetsuit. I had a hard time figuring out where the leash goes or what the board is, or am I goofy foot or regular foot? Like I didn't understand any of the language kind of thing. Language is important. Think before you speak, right? So when we are working with survivors, it's always just the best rule to approach them the same way you would want to be approached, right? We don't often like when people feel sorry for us or people ask us a whole bunch of questions that we're not really ready to answer. And then the last thing is remembering that veterans are trainable. Again, that one I want to emphasize. We've already gained so many of these skills that we can put to good use in the ocean. Awareness of our surroundings, being able to see people without looking directly at them, but using our peripheral vision. Sometimes our hypervigilance is good, especially in the ocean when we're like, oh, board coming, you know, like those are things that sometimes we think after the military, they have no use, but they often do. When you look at how to translate the military experience and surfing, we had to learn a whole new language in the military. Everything is acronyms. Everything in Marine Corps, at least, is acronyms. But then again, with surfing, there's this whole other language too. So reminding yourself that we're trainable, and then offering that sort of training to us is great. We want to know how the board works. We want to know what the language is. We want to know where we should and shouldn't be. We want to know risk factors to look out for. And we want to be reminded too, because we are creatures of permission. Sometimes we need to remind veterans, hey, it's okay to smile, right? Like the VA is not here with a camera. No one's going to take a picture because you're having a good old time out there smiling and cheesing, like reminding them that it's okay to feel joy. That joy lays dormant for so long in a lot of us, and surfing brings it out. And it's okay to celebrate those moments, even if after they leave the beach, they're going back to whatever trauma it was. That moment, it's okay to feel it and enjoy it. So Karen, I'm going to jump to you to go over and discuss the research and how it intertwines with ISTO and what they're doing for WVSP and all that. So that's all yours.
Yeah, so there's been some good studies published. I've read, I think, most all of them. And I think we're at a point internationally is like getting to where proving, that it is and its efficacy. Surf therapy works. And so, yeah, I just think probably more studies, maybe measuring physiological evidence of, that it's working. The retreat that we just did we use the ISTO pre and post surveys, and that was really good. The participants were all about the data. So that's another thing. Veterans, they like having jobs. And so one of the conflicts I had with the organization I was working with was like, no, don't let them do this, don't let them do that, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, women veterans want a job, because if they're standing around and feeling like they're getting waited on, that's going to actually make them feel very uncomfortable. So I actually had to tell the organization, no, they want to help. And that's part of their healing, is being of service. And so I think, part of surf therapy is also giving back and being of service and creating this, well, now that you've experienced this and you've had this result and this joy, naturally veterans want to pass it on. And that's what I see in my experiences. That's what I've noticed is veterans do. They want to pass it on. Trying to think of any specific research. That a lot has been done with veterans. And I do think, because like Luz was pointing out, the military has trained us. And so when we get into the ocean, it's perfect. Like everything I was trained to do that, is now I'm told in society is not right. I'm like, ooh, I can use this here. And it's wonderful. And so I was watching the women veterans learn how to pop up on the surfboard, and I'm standing there, and it dawned on me, and I was like, wait a second, we've been trained on how to do this motion. And I went over and I was like, let's try something different, because they were having a little bit of a hard time. And I was like, all right, hit the deck, like boot camp. And so they all went down, and I was like, all right, I'm going to come at you, and you're going to jump to combat stance before I push you over. And it was like that. They were on the deck, combat, on the deck, combat. And I'm like, oh, that's how you surf. And they were like, oh, they get out there and they're just boom, getting it. And I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I come up with that 3 days earlier? The last day. But it was so cool. And it just reiterated that the body totally remembers, and really just seeing people's faces light up. It's awesome. And yeah, it was really powerful to have all the women vets together, because a lot of times in the military, Luz was saying with the Ohana, the family, it is a very dysfunctional family, and there's a lot of incest going on, and there's no one trained. There's really, I don't know, like the right training to deal with that one aspect of it. You know, you see it in very tight religious communities, you see it in gangs, and you know, that type of, like Luz was talking about, you know, sexual assault within families, like, but no one was really mentioned that with the military. You know, you're on a ship with 100 people, that's a family for 3 months. You're sleeping next to these guys or girls, you know. You're not escaping. You're, you know, the guy who assaulted you. You're eating breakfast with them every day. So anyway, that's just what makes MST a little different. Trying to think anything else on our list. Luz, can you think of anything else to mention as we go to questions?
Yeah. So there's a need to serve the population of MST survivors domestically and globally within the surf community, right? Like there is definitely a need there. And the hopes is that people begin to see it as a need more than a want. It is, we do want to all get together, but we essentially need something like this. Surfing heals those who've experienced trauma in a profound way, which can be a complementary addition to traditional meds, MST group therapy settings, and talk therapy. So one thing we never do is we never suggest that, hey, if you start surfing, you don't have to take your meds anymore, or you don't have to do that. Absolutely not, right? But surfing in itself can be something that, in addition to those things, can really create some powerful and quick results. Another thing is we do something a little different with the MST community than I've seen in the past, which is that there is really no need to discuss the trauma, right? That is best left for a mental health professional. And that is usually almost always what I say to people when they start saying, okay, well, this is what happened to me. And I'm like, hold on. I want to know about your self-care. I want to know how you take care of you today. I want to know you today. The stuff that happened 10, 15, 20 years ago, that is best left with a mental health professional to sort of unpack that. So always circling back to the idea that surfing is a form of self-care, and asking them questions like, if you experienced an obstacle just on the way, on the way to the beach this morning, how'd you overcome it? Do you recognize that maybe that obstacle is preventable? And let's set some goals for the day. So always taking that, it's kind of like a wave. You take that negative wave and you kind of turn it back upside. And I've found that by sharing our experience of self-care and recovery and healing and the joy that we find, those are the things that end up bonding us, not the trauma, right? We want to stay away from trauma bonding and more into, just kind of inspiring one another. So I think oh, look at that. We're right on time. We've got 10 minutes left. So Shannon, if you want to maybe read us some of the questions. I saw a few pop up there.
Sure, and thank you ladies so much. That was such a comprehensive, it's not a report. I'm like all military, that report you just gave, but the presentation was incredible. Thank you both so much, and your personalities really came through, and it was very informative, I'm sure, for everyone. One of the questions was, Lucy, you mentioned that a veteran might be hesitant to be happy, like, oh, it's okay to smile. The VA might be looking behind your back. Like why would that be a concern, and how could you address that and maybe have insight into that?
So I will share with you my experience, and this is a very shared experience throughout the veteran community. Sometimes what happens is you get out of the military and you're not yet what is considered service connected. So when you're in the military, you're in the Department of Defense. When you're out of the military, you now belong to the Department of Veterans Affairs. The Department of Veterans Affairs will often do a rating from 0 to 100% to determine your eligibility for VA benefits, VA healthcare, mental health care, things like that. And there's a long process that takes. And in the middle of that transition between getting out or just starting to do a claim, like for example, my claim for MST took 4 years So in those 4 years, I was very hesitant to join any therapy groups through the VA for fear that if I reported doing well, they would not give me the benefits. I initially was awarded, after 4 years, I was awarded 70% service connected at my disability level. Between that to getting 100%, about 1.5 years of my life went by. And I began going to mental health for the first time in 16 years. I went into the VA. I realized that what happens is they take notes on the computer from the time you walk into the office about how you look, what you're wearing, what your demeanor is. And we're actually able to see these notes if we look, but that is why veterans often walk around as if, you know, Big Brother's looking, because in the VA system, and it doesn't happen in every, and I'm sure it's not true for every single vet, but the majority of us are afraid that if we show signs that we are feeling better for whatever reason, whether it's golf or surfing, right? If we show signs or we discuss that we're feeling better, we get afraid that they're going to take away our benefits. And so a lot of us, you know, outside of that will say, hey, when you go in, describe your worst day. Make sure you don't look all put together. Don't put your makeup on. Don't take a shower for a couple days. And it unfortunately is the way that this system is designed. It is designed to keep you on meds, keep you sick, keep you discussing your trauma. It is not a system currently that rewards recovery. And so that's where, I hope you understand, that's where the fear that some of us might just be having a good time comes in, where we won't want to show those things publicly.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Ooh, Karen.
I also wanted, and that's totally true, because I just had to have an evaluation, and I was talking to my surf buddies, all veterans, and I was like, yeah, I've got my eval, and they're like, oh, they're like, dude, don't shower. Like, and they're like, you're not going to go like that. I'm like, yeah. I was like, you know what, guys, I'm doing good. And I want them to know that I am doing good. And they're like, your benefits are going to get taken. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be honest. And I went in there, my evaluation actually was worse. And I was like, what? I'm doing everything right. And it turns out I have like neuropathy and like, anyway, it was like crazy. And so when I went back and told my friends, I was like, well, actually, I thought I was doing better, you know, but yeah, they were just like, don't go like that. You need to, you know, not shower and, you know, look like horrible and then tell them how everything is bad. And I'm like in my heart, that is so dishonest. And it's like so frustrating because it really holds a lot of veterans back from experiencing joy. Another thing I do notice with veterans, if they're having joy, and this makes I feel so sad, it reminds them of their friends who have been killed in combat or have committed suicide, that they're not having joy. And so if they have joy, it means like, you know, they don't deserve, because they're alive, they don't deserve to be having joy. And so that actually I've seen a lot. And that's heavy. But, you know, we do try to tell each other like, hey, so-and-so would want you to be having fun. So-and-so would want to be here with us, you know? And so that's why we do like paddle outs and stuff. But for me, that's tough, is when you lose somebody in the military and then you're having fun and then you're like, whoa, maybe I shouldn't be having fun. I don't really deserve this. So that might be another thing too.
Those are all excellent points and sharing. Thanks for sharing your personal experiences. We just have a couple minutes left, so I wanted to open it up to our lovely audience who have beautiful pictures. Do you have any questions for our presenters today, or have you had any incidences during your surf therapy sessions that you'd like insight on, or are there any questions that they can answer for you? Oh, 3, 2. Okay, ladies. Well,
I want to say.
Wait, I have something. It's Michelle.
okay.
Okay, sorry. So we had a women veteran that came and surfed with us one day. and then we just had a break, and we can't get her to come back, and she's making excuses, you know, and they're valid. She has family things going on, but she had such a great time, and I'm not sure if, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe I need to line her up with a female surfer because she was out with the male surfer. So I just haven't formulated how, you know, if I should just come out and say, would you prefer a female surfer, you know, to go out with you? I mean, I think that's probably the best way. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it definitely always offer it. You'll definitely find that like sometimes males who've experienced MST will feel much more comfortable working with a female. Some of them will feel more comfortable working with a male. Some females, like one of my friends was assaulted by both a male and a female when she was in. So that to keep in mind too, it's not always the person who's attacking is not always a male. So yeah, I would throw
Oh, that's true. Yeah, good point.
Definitely, if she feels more comfortable with a female surfer, and if for some reason there isn't one in the area, you can always give her mine or Karen's information, and we will make it a point to say, hey, there's a lot of us out here. We'll introduce you to them, and because there are.
Oh,
we're all
great. Okay, we'll do.
So,
good idea.
I was
Thank
going
you.
to speak to, is she a mom by chance? Does she have kids?
Yes, yes. A
Okay,
family, and
so-
her husband is also a veteran.
Okay, so one of the biggest hurdles for women to access surf therapy is childcare. And I've had so many people say, why do women not continue the programs? I'm like, the little humans they're dragging around, that's why. So if there's any possibility of maybe like a local college program that, you know, like a continued, what is it, like early childhood education, where the colleges have students looking to do like volunteering or hours, you know, a couple of students on the beach to watch the kids, you know, or say, hey, you know what, bring your kids if you have to. And then
Yeah, that's a really awesome idea, Karen. Thank you for reminding me of that. I was like, well, maybe we should have, you know, her bring her husband and the kids out, you know, and do a family thing. So great idea.
Yeah, and
I've been
Michelle,
7 years.
Michelle, Wahine Warriors are in Florida, and her program mostly works with women, but also veterans. And so I think that's also a good resource for you, because she has focused on female veterans, she'll have a lot of people that you can reach out to. So
There's
that's-
Warrior Surf too, right? Over there. Warrior
yeah,
Surf.
well, they're in South Carolina.
They're in South Carolina. I'm actually
Yeah.
their intern.
Yeah, Michelle's there. Michelle's
That's
there.
what I thought. Okay.
I just wanted to say, gosh, you know, I really have the privilege of listening in on all of these, and that was really impactful. I can't say thank you enough for just your vulnerability. Liz, obviously it's sort of what I kind of want to read my recommendation letter to everybody, because it's exactly what you did on the beach and in the ocean during the JMMF sessions. You really bring people to a place of, you know, feeling safe and comfortable, and a big part of that is because of your vulnerability, and you see somebody such as yourself who's so vulnerable and thriving at doing so. You want to emulate that. So wow. And Karen, like, I was like typing out all of these things, even though I know Shandon's gonna give me all the notes on this. I was like, anyway, super powerful. That's my only comment. Just extremely powerful. I can't wait to share this with everybody. And, you know, I'm bummed not more people were on this, but I bet this will be one of the most watched ones. So I cannot say thank you. Really, really informative.
On that
Thank you.
note, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but thank you ladies again so much. And thank you everyone for coming. We'll follow up. The ladies have agreed to share some of the resources. So that'll be part of the follow-up email to our group. And I'll again, type up the notes and make sure that the link is available for everybody to share. Thank you so much again.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we'll make sure we get you guys all the info. There's also a Tuesday night. It's 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We do a weekly call with women veterans, and we discuss self-care. The whole hour is just self-care. We ask some good questions, so we can put that in the email link to the Zoom link for that if anyone is interested or wants to share that resource.
Thank you. And should we do a screenshot? So we should share this on social
We
media?
should.
Ah,
All right. wait, I
Pascal,
always-
Pascal,
is
do you want to
it-
be in the picture?
Yeah,
Yes,
You don't
I
have
don't have a really
picture.
good. Yeah, I don't have a
Girl.
really good connection, but I think
Oh,
it's gonna
okay.
work. Maybe the
Okay.
sound won't work anymore, but the camera would. Okay,
Oh.
let's try it.
Okay. Woo.
Shannon,
okay.
I'll do it.
I'm gonna try it.
Everybody-
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Woo.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much. Looking forward to seeing you all next month.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
ladies.
you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.